Kaladin Stormblessed from Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive is arguably one of the greatest fictional characters ever conceived, and I'm not just overstating this. A big reason why I and so many others feel this way is because for almost the entirety of Book 1, Kaladin is the underdog of the story. The first recorded uses of the word underdog can be traced back to the late 19th century, where it was used in reference to the beaten dog in a fight. The term would gradually develop into the meaning we think of today, as this person or group who the public perceives as poor or weak, who nevertheless are able to achieve victory through determination, hard work, and struggle. Notably, there are stories about the term long before it was defined, the tale of David and Goliath being one of the most ancient examples. People root for the underdog because they tend to be more relatable than the ones always on top. Most of us are not naturally gifted and fall short of the extreme 1% that get through life easy without fail. There is some connection we all feel when we read about someone who's treated like dirt, that no one expects anything from, rises up, takes their chance, and achieves something remarkable. Now, this character study will focus mostly on Kaladin's arc in the first book, The Way of Kings, where he gets the most attention. He has interesting personal dilemmas that he faces in books 2 and 3, but The Way of Kings is where he really shines. Kaladin starts off as the son of a dark-eyed middle-class surgeon. Following a complicated series of events at home, his brother Tien is forcibly conscripted into the military, and Kaladin volunteers to protect him against his father's wishes. Tragedy ensues, which ultimately leads to his brother being killed in battle. This motivates Kaladin to work harder to protect the ones he cares about, and he learns to hone his skills with the spear to a masterful level. Within 4 years, he is promoted to the rank of squad leader and commands a small unit of 25 men. Because of the loss of his brother and his own perceived failure resulting in his siblings' death, Kaladin tries to make up for it by bringing barely trained youths into his squad so as to watch over them. One of the most defining moments for his character is when his squad is caught up in a battle against another Alemfi lord. Suddenly, a Shardbearer appears, wielding these insanely powerful weapons and armour known as Shardblade and Shardplate. The Shardbearer cuts through most of Kaladin's men like paper, and Kaladin, in a display of rage and skill, is able to slam his spearhead through the icelet of the Shardbearer's helmet, killing him, a near impossible task for someone without similar weaponry. It's at this point where Kaladin is presented with the opportunity to take up the Shardblade and Plate, some of the most sought after and prized possessions on the planet, thereby becoming a Light Eyes and joining the ruling class. But he refuses. He is so sickened at the prospect of taking up the very plate and blade responsible for slaughtering his men that he chooses to give them to one of the few survivors of his original squad. From this crucial scene, we see that Kaladin puts honour above reason, which ultimately costs him the lives of his remaining soldiers and his freedom. Bright Lord Amaram, who Kaladin admired and respected since he was a boy, betrays him, murdering the surviving members of Kaladin's squad, and steals the shards for himself. In so doing, he lets Kaladin live, branding him a slave, seeing this as a mercy for saving his lord's life. This act stokes Kaladin's deep contempt for all Light Eyes. After becoming a slave, he winds up in the ownership of High Prince Sadeas as a bridgeman, forced to carry bridges to allow the High Prince's army to traverse the shattered plains, the worst job imaginable, that is fraught with death and humiliation. As a slave, he befriends a spring by the name of Syl, a cheerful and mischievous little creature who takes on the appearance of a young woman about a handspan high. She leaves him for a time, and it is during this point when Kaladin hits rock bottom. Kaladin goes into a bout of severe depression as he contemplates all the people he failed to save. He's come so far, only to have lost everything. He's wound up with the lowest of the low on the battlefield, to be used as bait for enemy arrows, with no hope for survival. He walks up to the chasm, and as he ponders suicide, he remembers the words his father once put to him, that you can't save people by killing. He then places one foot over the edge of the abyss, fully intending on killing himself. Kaladin's reflection regarding his father's words is important because it highlights the inner turmoil he's struggling with. How can you save lives by killing people? It's a contradiction that Kaladin has to live with. He has been brought up as a surgeon, a healer, someone who values lives above all else. But since he was little, Kaladin has had a deep-seated desire to be a warrior. To become a soldier was Kaladin's dream, and when he first held a spear, it felt natural to him. He takes defiance easy, and him trying to find an answer to his problem as to how a natural-born killer handles that drive to protect lives is a fascinating part of his character growth. At this point in the story, Kaladin has embraced his impending death. He's ready to cast himself over the edge, knowing full well that the world has broken him. But just as he's about to end it all, Syl returns carrying a leaf that she thinks will make him feel better. The irony is that this leaf is in fact a dangerous poison, but Syl doesn't know that. She has delivered this leaf to Kaladin because to her it's something that Kaladin once sought to escape his slavery. She sees it as a symbol of Kaladin's hope, and that by bringing it to him, maybe he can reawaken his fighting spirit. Kaladin insists that he has failed, that it's too late for him and the other bridgemen, but Syl gently replies that life can't get any worse. So why not try one more time? And he does. Holy smokes, he does. He rebuilds himself. He intimidates his bridge sergeant into making him bridge leader. He teaches the bridgemen that their lives matter despite the vastness of their despair. He practices carrying planks of wood to inspire them. During a bridge run, he switches places with one of his bridgemen, Rock, to be at the very front and centre of the bridge, the most dangerous and easiest place to be picked off by the Pashandi arrows, which exemplifies his leadership. After all, if the bridge leader doesn't lead, how can he expect his men to follow? Immediately after a bridge run, he searches desperately for survivors and tends to their wounds, noting that some men take lives, while others save lives. Kaladin's story is one that many people gravitate towards because it is the journey of a man trying to overcome depression under the most dire of circumstances. He's stuck in a terrible situation that most would be crushed by, but he chooses to push through it anyway. He chooses life before death, strength before weakness, and journey before destination. These are the ideals that Kaladin strives to live by, which takes incredible willpower. It is true what they say, when we reach our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change. Although for Kaladin, this change in him was not brought on by one groundbreaking moment of understanding. The real world is seldom like that. No, the change in him was brought about by a series of moments and choices which builds his character into doing the right and noble thing, regardless of where he ends up. Death is the destination for all of us, but the journey, that is life. That is what counts. Live life to the fullest, no matter what. Yes, there are many times when we will lose, when we will fail, but that's never a reason not to try. To see someone like Kaladin go from contemplating suicide to become this leader who does all he can to protect the lives of his men is moving, it's inspiring, and it's incredibly satisfying to read about. One of my favourite scenes is when Kaladin teaches his men to carry the bridge on its side, thereby using it as a shield to guard against enemy arrows. It works spectacularly in saving Bridge 4, but dooms everyone else on the battlefield as the other bridge crews try to mimic what Kaladin's team are doing, and fail. Some of the other teams get their bridges in place, but many are cut down, while others lose control of their bridges in attempting unfamiliar maneuvers. The cavalry cross the chasm, but cannot make an effective charge against the Pashindi forces, as there are too many mislaid and missing bridges. This shows us that Kaladin's actions can have severe consequences. He changed Bridge 4's tactics, which saved his crew, without considering the larger strategy in place. It comes back to bite him hard when High Prince Sadius orders him to be strung upside down on Bridge 4's barrack to be left outside to face an oncoming high storm. This is where we start to feel a genuine connection developing between Kaladin and his fellow compatriots. The men of Bridge 4 are at the cusp of becoming a band of brothers. They care for one another, not just for the sake of survival, but for the sake of what Kaladin tried to do. He showed them that there was a different way to live as a bridgeman, a better way, a way that left them open to embracing warmth, good food and comradeship. They promise Kaladin they will remember him, and continue to function as a unit, thinking that he won't survive the storm. But he does survive, and many begin to perceive Kaladin as this living miracle, when in truth, his bond with Syl gave him powers to endure disastrous situations where others haven't. Kaladin has a range of powers, including rapidly healing his injuries, pulling dozens of arrows into his shield, and eventually running on walls and even learning to fly. Yes, Kaladin is powerful, immensely so, but his powers are not the result of him being born special. His men may call him Stormblessed, but this isn't because he is your typical chosen one. Rather, his honourable actions are the source of his strength. It is what first draws Syl to him. It's his choices that matter. It is important to note the difference between characters who are defined by their actions and ones who are solely defined by the circumstances surrounding their birth. Kaladin is not special for the sake of being special. He's special because he chooses to put others before himself. As Syl is an honest friend, the oaths Kaladin swears empower him. They require him to do the right thing. I find this to be a compelling magic system, as there is no universal law of morality that dictates what's right or wrong for these powers to work. This is something Kaladin and Syl have to figure out on their own. Are Kaladin's actions righteous at this point in the story? How can he tell when two opposing sides both have valid points? It provides a unique dilemma for Kaladin and puts a strain on his powers at times. If the oaths contradict, the bond between Kaladin and Syl weakens, and so does his powers. Essentially, Kaladin is a character whose actions drive the story. This is what makes him fascinating. At the climax of The Way of Kings, Kaladin and Bridge 4 bear witness to Sadio's betrayal of Dalinar's army, who is abandoned and left surrounded by enemies on all sides. During a few moments of contemplation, Kaladin remembers all the times he's fought and been betrayed. He's utterly convinced that Light Eyes are all corrupt, selfish, and will betray him like they always have. But he remembers that despite the sickening behaviour that evil men like Sadius are capable of, at some point, someone has to step up, to take action, to save lives instead of throwing them away. In no uncertain terms, he is still plagued by unhealthy thoughts, but through a series of difficult decisions, he's heroic and selfless when he needs to be. Kaladin realises that Bridge 4 have to go back and risk their necks to save these men they never met, despite finally having a chance to escape. It's a powerful moment that shows Kaladin will make the noble choice simply because it's the right thing to do. Thank you for watching this video. I'd like to hear your thoughts about what you think of Kaladin as a character. If you have any theories about what's next in store for Kaladin in the upcoming Rhythm of War book, comment down below. Personally, I think the fourth ideal of the Windrunners has something to do with accepting the fact that there are just some people you cannot save, no matter how hard you try. This is something Kaladin really seems to struggle with, which is why he couldn't bring himself to speak the words in Oathbringer. But who knows? We'll see soon enough. Do subscribe, and consider leaving a like if you enjoy my content. See you next time.